Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, coming at you live to talk about episode 1 of the new anime series, Black Clover. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode for the most part, and I thought it was really interesting the way it opened. These two characters, Asta and Yuno, being dropped off at, for all intents and purposes, an orphanage of sorts, a church, but, being taken in as orphans, just like some of my favorite things in the world, like the Three Stooges movie. These three cats are dropped off at an orphanage in the start of this movie. Love it or hate it, I thought this was a great movie, and improved with time with the performances therein, as well as you might denote, I am a Blues Brothers fan. I was once part of a Blues Brothers tribute act. That's why I am known as the Blues Man, for those tuning in for the first time on my channel. And if you've ever seen the movie, of course, you know that they go back to their orphanage that they grew up in, but you find a lot more information to that effect in this companion piece book that most people don't know about, Blues Brothers Private. I highly recommend you check it out because there's a lot of faux official documentation showing up in this book about how Jake and Elwood Blues, were found at the orphanage, what their potential family ties are. They're not necessarily blood relation and all that kind of stuff, but I digress. I just thought it was hilarious that these two main characters, Asta and Yuno, are dropped off for all intents and purposes. They're unrelated, much like Jake and Elwood, and it's a world wherein magic is like the in thing. Magic is everything, and so it's quite sort of gobsmacking the fact that Asta, as we skip ahead 15 years later, they've been taken in by this priest, and jump ahead those 15 years, and we find Asta is incapable of using magic at all. The one sort of detractor for the episode is that the Sayu of the character of Asta is constantly screaming his every frickin' line of dialogue. He keeps screaming bloody murder. It's a wonder they didn't blow out the speakers in the recording studio where they had him recording his lines. And that it did get taxing to a degree for me. There were a few calmer moments and more silent moments for him in the episode, but it's, again, as soon as he picked up again, it's just like 1, 2, 3, boom, start screaming it, and everything he has to say, scream it. And so that was the one sort of annoying factor. But the whole rest of the episode I actually really enjoyed. You have Yuno, who is, when they've grown up, when we've skipped ahead those 15 years, he is the taller, more stoic, more calm, more reserved. Not necessarily monosyllabic, but he doesn't say a whole hell of a lot. He doesn't really need to. He can issue magic forth, wind magic to dry the laundry for the nun that is, the sister, or whatever you want to call it, that is sort of the caregiver of the joint at that point in time. And this woman, by the way, is somebody Asta is really trying hard to hit on. He really wants to marry her. He really wants to be like the Wizard King or whatever, whatever that is a reference to that exists within this world. Probably the most all-powerful being, on land, on the Earth, on Terra Nova. And there's a sort of a rivalry because these two have grown up together. They've always been inseparable, but they're competitive with each other. And of course with Asta, he's very impetuous, he's very loud, he's loud-mouthed, he is a loud ass and so it rubs him the wrong way when, of course, Yuno comes in and helps the sister with the laundry because suddenly, he's taken her attention away from Asta, who's trying to propose to her, and ends up, by the way, she uses a grimoire and summons water magic like a giant fist to go right down on top of him into a mud hole. Twice, I might add, because, it's like, I guess the most effective way to give him a cold shower is to do it right there in the mud. And some other kids are watching, and you got this one little snarky kid who's got his arms behind his head, and he's all like, acting sort of calm and cool and collected, and he's just like, man, you're older than me, and this is the way you're acting? I'm like the genuine kid here, and even and he summons forth like flames, he's got flame magic, and Asta's there like, I'm gonna put you in your place, can you do this? And kind of like Saitama One Punch Man style, he goes into like rapid sit-ups and everything. like that. At one point, he's banging his head on the ground super duper fast to try to gain the affections. This is what he's doing to try to gain the affections of this nun. And like, I was laughing in spite of the annoying, like, just cringing, screaming every line of dialogue that Asta was doing. Or I should say the Seiyu, again, of Asta. It was a funny scenario, and to see, like, you know, he goes around the corner at one point, and he's going to chop wood, and without even, like, a second thought, you have Yuno come around the corner, and he's the one who chopped it with, like, wind magic. Like, how the hell is that achievable? I don't know. But magic is everything in this world, and Asta, that's the one thing Asta doesn't have. He can't claim for his own. So, you know, we skip ahead again a little bit, maybe a day or two, whatever it is, and it's finally the grimoire selection period, where all of these kids and everything like that who've been studying at the age of 15 or 16, whatever it is, they are going to have their, you know, sort of a la Harry Potter with the magic hat and whatever. And I'm not a Harry Potter fan. If I got that reference wrong, don't shoot the messenger. But in any case, you know, the grimoires select the mages in a sense. And so they all accumulate in this, you know, grimoire building, this tower full of books, full of novels of all varying shapes and sizes. And some of them have blank pages, and some of them are full of, you know, calligraphy and text. And some books are, like, literally, like, just little tiny books. And then you got giant ones, and then you got really thick ones, like phone book, you know, with. And so the selection begins, and Asta is the only one who doesn't get a single lock of paper. He gets nothing. And, of course, he's being ridiculed and laughed at, fingers pointed at him by sort of the chip on their shoulder a-holes of the bunch who think very highly of themselves and are putting him down and whatever like that. Within earshot of the one little kid who was giving Asta a hard time earlier, too, and it looks like he was getting more ticked off to hear these guys, you know, poking fun at Asta and everything. Because they're from the lowly church, you know, they're the street rats and everything. They're the refuse, so they're undeserved as far as these more scholarly, high and mighty types, you know, consider it. And so what flabbergasts everyone is Yuno actually gets a grimoire, but it's a grimoire with a 4-leaf clover. And there's this whole thing about, you know, the grimoires all have 3 leaves, which is like love, hope, and I forget what it is, but if you get the 4-leaf clover, that also includes luck, and that is something denoting much more power, which is something, you know, is capable of. He commands, he wields more power magically than pretty much anyone else, even though he is, you know, an outcast, a scruffy little beggar boy, you know, that kind of thing, much like Asta. And they come from humble origins, in other words. So it already kind of gives you that idea, that dichotomy of, you know, here are the elites and here is a downtrodden underdog character, 2 underdog characters really, and he has the power to strive greater than any of them. Later this guy comes and challenges, you know, and without even using any of the power from the grimoire itself with the 4-leaf clover on it, he's able to bash it away. You know, he sends this flame magic packing with his air magic, protects himself, and then, you know, destroys it, makes it not having any effect on him. And so when he gets this, he declares to the crowd he is going to be, in fact, the Wizard King, or whatever it is. And this is something Asta has been saying is what his lifetime goal is. This is what he wants to achieve. And I'm just like, yeah, but you got no magic, bro. What are you going to do? How are you going to do anything? You can't do anything. And I wasn't exactly sure how this was going to play out. I'm unfamiliar with if there is source material to this. I have no idea, you know, if there is or not. I don't know what the framework of the story is meant to be. But I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting because he's cutting pretty close to the chase that he and Yuno are going to be rivals, you know, that kind of thing. And how can he rival, you know, or hope to accomplish what Yuno sets out saying he's going to, becoming the Wizard King? How does he hold any hope of doing that without Magic 1? You know, no MP whatsoever. So, of course, later on, you're wondering what he might be doing. We see a training sort of segment where Again, he's like standing on his head and he's doing all kinds of calisthenics and everything like that. Much, again, like Saitama, One Punch Man style. And he tries to summon magic, nothing happens. And as he's frustrated and he's hanging out in treetops and everything, he's just sort of mulling things over and muttering to himself, this is something I'm going to make happen. I am going to rival I am going to put him in his place. And everyone else who doubts me. You hear a scream, which calls back to after having been ganged up on by this, couple of jerk faces, and he's dispatched them. Suddenly you see these chains erupt. And there's been this one sort of Vincent Valentine Final Fantasy VII reference looking dude in the crowd who has this really skulky laugh and everything. And you could tell he's like a dark bastard. He's like just observing everything. How did they even let him in? There's no security in the Grimoire building? I don't know. But he had seen who got the four-leaf clover Grimoire and everything. And this is something he wants. He wants it god-awfully, So it's him who had summoned the chains, and he dispatched the two sort of, gangland wannabes, the two elitists who were trying to put Yuno in his place, and that he fended off with ease. And suddenly the chains wrap around Yuno as well, and this guy, he's going to make off with the four-leaf clover grimoire for his own. He takes it pretty damn simply. And Yuno is, for all his power that we've seen thus far, he's ineffectual, or maybe he's containing himself. But then, of course, enter Asta, who decides he's going to come and save his boy, his rival. Nobody can step to this cat. He's my rival. Only I can step to him. And at first he thinks it's the two elitists that are actually the ones doing it, but then he realizes he sees the guy over here with the chains, and they're up against the wall, wrapped in chains and everything, after falling on his head, I might add, which was hilarious. And so he's like back talking this guy, like, oh, you're gonna be a thief? You're gonna steal the four-leaf clover grimoire, my boy, my rival? I'm the only one who gets to do that. And then he has his ass properly handed to him by this enigmatic figure, whose name I forget. And it's really interesting. He, at that point, the guy comes up to him and he's like, I read no magic in you whatsoever. These chains can detect magic, and there's nothing, not even the barest hint of a suggestion, of a contemplation of magic within you. You're useless. You're dead. You're ineffectual. And this really brings Asta down. And he's defeated. He's crushed under the weight of it. And this is where I really liked the dichotomy between his character and Yuno's. Yuno, who is, again, still contained in chains, but able to speak and everything like that, he calls out. He's like, what are you talking about? That's not the Asta I know. This Asta is my rival. And this is just the spark, the flame of excitement and adrenaline that Asta needs to get the F off his ass. And like, you damn right. We ain't done here today, mother trucker. And so Asta, not having gotten his own grimoire, suddenly a manifestation of red glowing magic, flame looking magic, something otherworldly emanates before him, and a grimoire with a black clover, hence the title, a 5-leaf clover, appears before him. And we are told that this is a manifestation of a demon. It contains demon magic, dark magic. And suddenly a sword appears as well. And they close in on Asta's face, and he's just like, I'm gonna wreak havoc all over your ass, to the guy who's trying to make off with Yuno's grimoire. And that's where we end off. Cliffhanger for the end of the first episode, and just, it was really entertaining, really enjoyable. I really liked the sort of the look of the world, the design of it, the aesthetics. Kind of reminded me of Dragon Quest VIII that I played a long time ago, a PS2 game. And just sort of the same kind of environment, world of magic and all this kind of stuff. And, here are these two orphans who are downtrodden, who are these underdog characters. And, of course, there's going to be a rivalry because we kind of have, who is, the magic, the light, who is given a grimoire that went to the last Wizard King. And so his proclamation that is what he is seeking ultimately is something that's very easily achievable, at least at this first stage in the game. These baby steps into this world seems to be that way. And then, so in answer to that, the yin and the yang, Asta gets this demon magic, this all-powerful seeming. I mean, if it's a 5-leaf clover, a black clover, it seems like that's something to rival on par, head-to-head, with the 4-leaf clover grimoire. And it was kind of exciting and entertaining, and I was laughing, and, you know, like, even though that damn screamy me voice of Astos was plaguing me a little bit throughout the episode, I highly enjoyed it. So I really wanted to come on and talk about it, being that this is brand new anime just getting its start, you know, for the fall season. And I make no promises as to whether or not I will be coming back every week to review it after each and every episode. There's a chance that I might do that depending on how I feel after watching it. Or I might go over to my Facebook page. It's just a personal account. I do a lot of anime write-ups there of things that I don't cover in video format. So you can always feel free to friend me over there. And I post, you know, thumbnails and a write-up about an episode, whatever it happens to be, my thoughts on it, what I liked, what I didn't like, all the kinds of things I would talk about in video form, but I write it out. And I make a written post, a written review. So you can friend me over there. Again, it's a personal account if you feel okay with that, if you want to hear my thoughts on episodes that I'm not going to be talking about in video format. That's the place to be. But we shall see as I continue to watch this show and hopefully continue to enjoy it. There have been shows that the first episode knocked it out of the park, and then it was immediately, like, you know, a flat line by the second episode, so I make no promises. And there's still Shokugeki no Soma Season 3, you know, that I got to check out as well. So, yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of Episode 1. I know there's a whole question about, oh, is this show getting too much hype going into it and everything like that? Is it really worth the hype and everything? I don't know. I don't care about hype. I just watch what I watch, and if I like it, that's what puts me here talking about it. So let me know what you thought of Episode 1 of Black Clover. If you've seen it as well, love it or hate it, anything goes in the comments below. Just love having that conversation. Even if our POVs happen to disagree, it's all awesome. You know, it's all about the topic of talk and talking out what we love and what we don't. You know, so otherwise, hope this video finds you well. That'll be pretty much it for me on this, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.